We're very pleased to welcome back another of our teleconference alumni, Alicia Diehl. Alicia is the team leader of the drinking water quality team at the TCEQ. She has a chemical engineering degree from the University of Wisconsin and a master's and PhD from the University of Texas at Austin, where she did research on disinfection byproducts in drinking water. Today she's going to talk about public notification for the groundwater rule. Good morning, Alicia, and welcome back. And actually, it's lunchtime. Good afternoon.
Thanks, Mike. And I'm not Debbie Serta, but I play her on TV. You know, I've been watching this teleconference today, and I've got to say, my brain is full. Now, it's a lot of information, and I guess watching this teleconference and gaining this additional information about the rule is not going to make the rule any less confusing, but hopefully it'll give you the tools to know, what might be an issue for you and your system, and be able to plan and make decisions going forward, in a little bit easier way. Well, I'm going to talk in the context of the groundwater rule about public notification and consumer confidence report. And to start out, I'm going to kind of go back in time to the 1960s and 70s when the Safe Drinking Water Act was first conceived. One of the kind of 2 or 3 main principles in that Safe Drinking Water Act was the concept of right to know, the consumer's right to know. And these public notice requirements have all come out of that spirit of being transparent and letting folks know what's going on. So, we've stressed, and you've heard it all day, communication is the key. Communication with TCEQ, communication among interconnected public water systems, and then communication with your customers. So my little subset is going to be today that special communication that's going to be required that you have with your customers. Now, I know that, one of the things I learned when I came to TCEQ, one of the first things I learned was that you guys, it's more important a lot of times to try and avoid having to notify your customers than it is to even try and avoid some of the fines that might be associated with these rules and violations. But, I've got to say, I understand that. It's difficult to say, hey, we kind of had a problem. But think about this. When you notify, everything I talk about today, there's going to be an element of that notification where you have the opportunity to say, hey, this is what we're doing to correct the problem. So it's a lot different when you think about when you're communicating, well, we had a problem, but we figured out what was wrong, and we solved the problem, and we're keeping your water safe. So let me start with the overview. We're going to talk about the public notification requirements, which is what happens right on the ground when that first triggering event, whatever it may be, when that happens, from 24-hour notification, 30-day or 90-day. And then the follow-up, which is for community water systems, the Consumer Confidence Report, which will be the follow-up notification over time with the customers. So, starting with public notification. These are those notices that you're going to provide immediately when something happens. And we'll start with the 24-hour. The 24-hour public notification is the least frequent one that anybody's ever going to have to give out, okay? It's real exciting when it happens, but it doesn't happen that often. So under the groundwater rule, when you have this situation like Mark was talking about, and you'll recognize these little slides, TCEQ recycles, but it was important to bring that in, and so when you have a violation, you're going to have to notify, okay? And even in some conditions when you don't actually specifically have a notification violation, you may also have to notify. The specific violations that I talk about in this section, Alex Briseno will be telling you the details of each of those violations whenever she talks next. But let's start with this 24-hour deal. If you have a fecal indicator positive in a well, which is what all of this is all about today, you're going to have to notify your customers within 24 hours. That includes, you're going to have to notify purchase water systems that are customers, and if you have a well sample in a provider, so the wholesaler has a positive fecal indicator in their well, you buy water from them, you have to tell your customers about that fecal indicator positive. Doesn't matter if that happened as a result of follow-up on a total coliform rule positive, or whether you're on a plan to do that monthly source water assessment monitoring. Either way, you've got to pick up the phone and call TCEQ about that, and then they'll help you guide you through what you've got to do for the 24-hour notification. I guess that's the take-home message here. And also, you know, I talk about this, the other material you can add, anything factual and not intended to frustrate the intent of the notice. Like, you can say, we had this fecal indicator positive. We called and we're working with TCEQ to figure out what we need to do next. We maintain, we have a disinfectant residual in the system of this, whatever that factual residual may be. Anything factual that says, you know, hey, we're on the case, we're working on this, we're gonna get it solved. You know, you can't say things that are an opinion, like TCEQ is lousy, but anything factual that adds support to your public notice. Okay, a little less exciting notification, but one that happens a little more frequency, is going to be your 30-day public notice. So under the groundwater rule, whenever a system that gets water from wells is supposed to take a corrective action. So they've gone through the whole thing Mark talked about, worked out this schedule, worked out what's going to happen, whether it's additional sampling or whatever. When that corrective action is required, you're going to have a plan that's signed off on by TCEQ and by y'all. If you said you're going to do something on that plan and you fail to do it, or if you fail to do it on time, then you're going to have to notify your customers that that didn't happen, okay? And if, regardless of whether you're doing 4-log, as long as we know you're doing 4-log and you're getting that minimum specified residual, if you don't meet that minimum specified residual, I highly recommend you go ahead, pick up the phone, call TCEQ right away. If you have not maintained 4-log inactivation of viruses, then you're going to have to notify your customers within 30 days. Partly you should call TCEQ because it's the rule, but the other reason you should call is, like Jack was talking about, and you've got that minimum specified residual, right? Okay, well that's a worst case scenario. It may be that even though you say you dropped a little bit below that minimum specified residual, it may be that because your flow is lower than normal, or maybe the temperature is higher than normal, that with TCEQ's help you can do the calculations and find that you have in fact maintained 4-log treatment of viruses. So before you do that 30-day notification on the 4-log inactivation, be sure you've had a good conversation with TCEQ.